Creaming is a process where you are basically, in this case, using the mixer and the paddle or beater, and we're creating fat-coated air cells. So I'm going to start with the sugar and my butter. You know, unsalted butter is best. It doesn't have any salt in it, and this way you're using the pure fat of that butter. And you want to really basically just let the mixer, the paddle, beat, aerate, and combine those two together. Now, how long might that take? It might take, depending on the temperature, it might take, for this amount here, it might take about 2 to 3 minutes. A larger batch, you might have to go 2 times or 3 times longer, but the main emphasis is the temperature. If you're starting with ice cold butter, then you should actually soften the butter on its own in the mixer before you introduce the sugar. So I'm going to turn the speed up, and you can see in the bowl here that you should see a color change from that yellow to a very light pale yellow, and it should also become very fluffy. Sometimes you can listen to the machine and hear the air being generated in the mix, but mainly, visually look for color. And also, as you can see in this case, it's spreading out, and there's literally no resistance for the machine to deal with if the butter was cold. I can hear a little bit of the air being forced in, but I'm looking again at, you can see the sugar crystals being spread out. They're literally, we're coating, the sugar into the fat, and then we're expanding that combined mixture together. Now, why is that important? Because that's going to help to hold what other liquid we may add to the recipe, but it's also going to give a texture of lightness and tenderness to the product. Cookies of various varieties are commonly started with the creaming method. There are other cookies which I'll show later where the creaming method is not necessary. But for this type of cookie, the Spritz cookie, I need a nice, light, fluffy mixture so I can squeeze it out through the pastry bag setup that I have, or else it's going to be very challenging. Okay, so at this point, as you can see, I can look at the paddle, take some of the mixture. It's very light. It's almost white with a very faint yellow hue to it. Also, I want to make sure that there's no chunks of butter left on the paddle or the beater. And like one of my colleagues always reminds students to learn is, as you're creaming, you should do a very simple thing. Stop, drop, and scrape. Now, stop means stop the mixer, of course. Drop generally means to lower the bowl. In this case, it's actually the opposite. I'm going to raise the head of the machine, which I did, and then you want to scrape. And the reason for scraping is you want to make sure that it's all uniformly incorporated. And then as you're about to add your next set of ingredients, especially if they're liquids, you have a good starting point where everything is in the bottom.